Yahusha is the Elohim. Yahusha is the eternal, the ultimate. He's the Aleph Tor, with no beginning or ending. That's Yahusha. Existing outside all time and space. Omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. He created this dimension, galaxy of stars, planets, and this earth with its solar system. He created mankind and identified, communed, and had intimate fellowship with Adam and Eve, who were one with him and immortal as he is. They were able to live forever, supposed to. At the fall, however, sin entered. The garden covenant house was shut up, and Elohim could no longer come close. We also notice from chapter 3 of Genesis that the term Elohim is given a name, Yahuwah, for he revealed himself in the form of an invisible being to mankind. And even then, his visitations, which were mainly oral, vocal, were often generations apart. The intimacy was broken. It was many, many years, often decades in between visits. One guy would hear his voice and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years later, there's nothing until he appears to someone else. And often it's many generations down the line. He really was disconnected from his creation. He could not come close. And as we saw in the first 2,000 years of human history, apart from Enoch and Noah, a couple of others, he literally wiped out the planet, flooded the whole earth because of the violence on the earth. So the intimacy was just totally broken. The door was shut. Dimensions were separate. The connection was severed. The door to deliverance has always been to obey the voice of Elohim and live, disobey and die. And a covenant is merely a formal agreement to this fact. A covenant is merely just saying, well, I agree and I promise I'll do it. That's what a covenant is. Yahuwah Elohim raised up many covenants with men of many generations in order to remind them of his deliverance. In other words, when they die, they will still live on. So that he was promising them an afterlife in a sense, because that's what deliverance is, the promise of an afterlife. So how was deliverance available to the early, how was deliverance available to the early patriarchs? What did deliverance mean to the early guys? Adam, Abraham, Noah. What did deliverance mean to them? Ever since Adam, repentance of sins to draw closer came through animal sacrifice on altars, and the voice of Elohim spoke what he required of people, such as Enoch, Noah, Shem, etc. And the idea of righteousness is simply obeying Elohim's voice. There's not much written down. A couple of etchings on some stone, but nothing formally written down. It was all passed down from generation to generation, oral. So obviously Adam would have passed down to his family, and so on and so on, the difference between good and evil, what the behavior was, what the requirements were. We get an idea of what it would be because he doesn't change the definition of good and bad, good and evil, and we know at the Ten Commandments he gives the ultimate definition of what good and evil is there, so it wouldn't have changed. It's all about love, and so he's teaching ever since Adam loving behavior. He just makes it a little bit more formal on Sinai, but it was always about the idea of righteousness, hearing his voice and doing it. Yahuwah sought to come close to his people through Abraham then, involving the physical act of circumcision, which brought the understanding of blood atonement much closer to home. Having to shed the blood of every male foreskin for intimacy with their creator. So taking it a little bit further now, I want to come just a bit closer now. Animal blood's not going to really seal the deal here. I want to come even closer. And the closer I come, more is required. So it's not just going to be animals now. You have to get involved with this covenant that I'm giving you, Abraham. All your men need to be circumcised so that the seed passes through, circle, seed, sperm, passes through the circumcision. Get it? Into the womb, producing another child. This was the start of the Hebrew tribes, and Abraham was the first. Through his seed, Yahusha, through Abraham's seed, which was ultimately Yahusha. All the nations of the earth were to be blessed. Isaac, Jacob, the 12 tribes going to slavery and then delivered out of Egypt from the blood of the Passover lamb, all Yahuwah Elohim's plan to draw closer, making himself known to his bride through many signs and wonders, culminating in his arrival atop the mountain in Sinai. He was to be married to his bride, consummated, and Yisrael was to be a shining beacon of light to the nations. But right in the middle of the marriage ceremony, they rejected him, refused to come close up to the mountain, sent Moses instead, and proceeded to hold idolatrous orgies surrounding the golden calf. So see what a disgusting spit in his face it was. And as far as Yahuwah was concerned, he was done with them and desired to destroy Yisrael right then and there. And we hadn't seen that feeling in him since the flood. So it hasn't been quite 1,000 years since the flood, but back here. And we saw him just enraged with the world and regretting, wishing he'd never even created them in the first place. And we see this behavior from Yahuwah right here again. As far as he was concerned, he wanted to destroy them right then and there. And he would have, if not for the intervening pleas from Moses, asking to punish him instead. So there was hope. Yahuwah did forgive them, but punished them at the same time. If they truly wanted his deliverance now, they would need to prove themselves and labor for it. Hence, the Torah commands, the schoolmaster of sin and death, and the sacrificial system, where the nation was no longer given the option of obedience and loyalty. All the other men of old were given the option: obey me and live, disobey and die. They weren't given this option. You either obey me or you literally die. This was the national. They weren't given, what does it say? No, they weren't given the option. The nation was no longer given the option of obedience and loyalty. No way. Yahuwah's divine laws became the official national constitution of the whole nation, and no one was allowed amongst them unless they too renounced their former ways and beliefs and then joined to the Yisrael branch. So they didn't have a choice. It was just put on them, right on top of them. This is not now the way you're going to raise your children. What I say goes, and if you don't do it, you're dead. And if you don't do it by accident, bring your animals and show me how sorry you are. He wanted to show them how sinful they really are. And of course, it was so that they would ultimately see what Yahushua was going to do for them in lifting all the burdens off them. That was the plan. So all these commandments that he put on top of them to show them what he required back there, the Yahuwah only Hebrew roots believers still take all the commands of the old covenant so seriously. They still attempt to live them out here in this day and age. All of it. But you see, after Yahuwah wiped out the first generation of Yisrael and led the rest back into Canaan, they still refused him, still refused to stop the idolatry of the surrounding nations. And so, even after dwelling so close with them, through the tabernacle, temple, many more signs and wonders, he left them completely, left them, divorced them, left the temple, wrote them a certificate of divorce. She's a whore, a harlot. I don't want to know her anymore. I'm leaving, never to return again. He divorced his bride Yisrael and sent them into captivity by the surrounding nations that they lusted after so much. You want the surrounding nations in their ways, want to live and behave like they do? Here, you can have them, and let's see how they treat you. Yet he did promise to raise up a new covenant one day with new laws written on our hearts and minds, not on stony tablets. This was going to be a Torah of sin. This was going to be a Torah of spirit and life, not of sin and death. Yes, there's two Torahs, the Torah of sin and death and the Torah of spirit and life. The Torah of spirit and life is what you can hear from him, and what you see and what you glean from the word. It's what he is. He is the spirit and the life. And if you're doing that, and the fruit of righteousness, which is the spirit and the life, is in the fruit of righteousness. If you're not doing that, you are subjected to the carnal, fleshly Torah of sin and death, which is you must wear this, you must sacrifice animals. It's all about animal blood, or circumcision blood, or the temples, the altars, the garments. It's all fleshly, natural, agricultural Torah of sin and death. See how stupid people in the 21st century look back to the Torah of sin and death and go, oh, that's what we've got to do. We can't hear his voice if we don't do that. That's stupidity. It's actually wickedness, because there's a Torah or a commandment, instruction of spirit and life. He wants you to know his spirit of life, but you've got to go through the doorway. And the preachers, teachers, pastors, rabbis are peddling the wrong door. They're standing in the doorway, pointing you somewhere else, and it's wickedness, leading you to the wrong Torah. So where are we up to in history? He's divorced them all, kicked them all out of the land. Yahuwah then allowed a small portion of people, who we'd call Jews, to return to the land and build the temple again. But it was only for a backdrop of what came next, for he never possessed a temple made with hands ever again. Instead, Elohim left his throne in heaven and underwent a transition into the form of a flesh and blood man, in order to not only come close, but to actually live in amongst his people. The new first fruit being was named Yahusha. He is actually Elohim, making it very clear that if we've seen him, we've seen Elohim, known previously as the Father. If you've seen me, he said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He always pointed people to the Father. He pointed people to Elohim. He wanted people to look at Elohim, not him, because he wanted to teach them humility. He wanted to teach them what the goal and the behavior of a servant was. The fruits of righteousness, love, joy, peace, patience. He lived all those things. So Yahusha is actually the Father, Creator, and Elohim. Yet he appeared as a humble, lowly servant son in order to fulfill all messianic prophecies through suffering and death for the sins of his people. Now, while he declared that he did in fact come for the lost sheep of Israel, he also made it very clear, especially after his ascension, through the book of Acts and so forth, he made it very clear, as we saw in the scriptures above, that the door was now flung open to the people of any race, culture, or colour. In Yahushua Messiah, there is no Jew or Gentile, no slave or free, no male or female, for all are one being in Yahushua, all come together, knit together in Yahushua. And if you're in Yahushua, you are the children of Abraham. You are the sons of promise. He made that very clear. So Yahushua is the door, and through his new covenant, raised up in the new life of his perfect blood, not the blood of animals or fleshly circumcision, yes, his divine Elohim blood was shed, connecting the dimensions once again, allowing his new chosen bride to be once again clothed in the warm light of presence and given access his divine attributes, given access to his divine attributes, which are the fruits of loving behavior. And as we know, Elohim never contradicts himself, yet he came, lived, transformed, and raised up new covenant commands, royal laws of love for him and our neighbour. This is how you know you're connected through the door. If you are doing these royal laws, if you are striving to enter the narrow gate, strive to enter the narrow door, which is Yahushua. It's narrow. You've got to be so strict with your mind, with your behaviour, with your heart, with your life, the way you behave. You've got to be so strict. It's a narrow path, a narrow door, a narrow gate. And it's all about love. It's all about the royal laws, the fruits of righteousness. That's how you know that you've come to the right door. Door number one. The door of intimate connection has always been him. Ever since the garden, it was him. He had to appear in different ways to different people for different purposes. He can do that. He can appear as anybody. He can appear as Melchizedek. He can appear as a servant. He can appear as an angel. He can appear as a host, as a general, chief general. He can appear and, punch Jacob in the leg, in the hip. He can do anything he wants to do, and he did, and he came in the form of a man. The door of intimate connection has always been him. He died, he suffered, died, resurrected, ascended, and appeared as the slain lamb in heaven in order to take his rightful place on the throne of esteem and usher in the last day scroll judgments, which we're seeing happening right now. Yahusha is the door, but deliverance is only available. So you might know the name Yahusha and agree with the name Yahusha, and that's great. Yahuwah is the Father, Yahusha is the Son, you think, you're great. Yahusha, I agree with Yahusha. Yahusha is the door. But deliverance is only available through divine recognition and revelation of who he truly is. So you might agree with the name, but if you don't recognize who he truly is, do you really know him? And as those parables said above, it's really important to know him, isn't it? You don't want to get to the end and he goes, who are you? Who are you? You're Yahusha, my deliverer. You're my Messiah. And he says, I'm actually Elohim. I'm everything. And I require you to transition knowing that I am Elohim. But you wouldn't. You wouldn't understand that I am Elohim. It's divine revelation on your heart. Like Peter said to him, you're Elohim. You're the son of Elohim. You're Elohim. You are him. The being we've been worshipping for thousands of years, that's you. Because Yahusha said, who do you think I am? Who do they say I am? Peter was the only one who said, you're Elohim. And Yahusha said, that can only come to you by divine, that can only come to you in your heart from the Father. That can, see what I mean? It's divine. Yahusha is the door, but deliverance is only available through divine recognition and revelation of who he truly is, Elohim. That he is the same door on the altars, arks, and dwellings of old. That he is the same door as the arks. There's a typo there. As. He is the same door as the altars, ark, and dwellings of old. So he's the same door, the same portal that was on the altars and the ark and the portal, the tabernacle and temple. He is the same door. It's always been him, because he said, I'm the Aleph and the Tor. That was what was so important, what he said to John in Revelation. I am the Aleph and the Tor. And that untranslated Aleph Tor that's right through the Hebrew text from beginning to end, some translations show it more than others, it shows that he's been the author ever since, from the beginning. So who was there first, Yahusha or Yahuwah? Who was there first? Who was he really? Elohim. Elohim. He appeared as Yahuwah first, but he see what I'm saying? You've got to think about all this stuff. Who was there first? Elohim appeared first as Elohim in creation. Elohim appeared first as Yahuwah in creation and then became Yahusha. But he says, I am the Aleph and the Tor. It's Yahusha. It's always been Yahusha. Yahusha, Elohim, is the only divine portal connection between heaven and earth. No one comes to intimacy with Elohim but through him. But through him. You cannot come to intimacy with Elohim but through him, because he is Elohim. So this is the doorway. Repent, be immersed, receive the Spirit and power. You are immersed in the Spirit and power. Water of his word and the Spirit. He says that. John said that in the wilderness. I immersed you in water, but one is coming. I'm not even worthy to tie his sandals. He will immerse you in the Spirit and fire. Spirit and power. So that's what we need to be immersed in the Spirit and power. Have a divine heart operation. Comes in, the incorruptible seed is planted. And that is when, if you accept that Yahusha is Elohim, you enter the transition of the cocoon to be trained. The figure of a cocoon, the picture of a cocoon like a butterfly, going into the cocoon to be trained, to be transitioned, to undergo the disciplines in order to be matured in the divine fruits of righteous behavior. And that's the only way you will be given entrance to the wilderness, because the entrance, the wilderness, doorway to the wilderness, you can't get through that door unless you're dead. You cannot get into the wilderness unless you are dead to the flesh. So if you're not dead to the flesh yet and you're still struggling with things, you know you're still in your cocooned training process. Training to put on the fruits of righteous behavior, and those fruits begin with loving Elohim first. Loving Elohim, as you read from the beginning of Genesis all the way through, if you want to love him, keep my commands. So he says, love me. Love Yahuwah, your Elohim, with all your heart, mind, body, strength. And if you don't know what he likes and what he doesn't like, that's why you got to read all the scriptures to know what he likes, know what he loves and what he hates in our behavior. And then we've got to love our neighbor as ourselves. So it's the only way you're going to make it into the wilderness. Those seeking the door of Yahuwah, those seeking its own, Yahusha is the only one available to you now. So if you're calling out on the name of Yahuwah, Father, I come to you, Father Yahuwah, Abba Yahuwah, I come to you in the name of Yahusha. There's no Father. There's no Abba. He's not a father. He's gone. He's not there anymore. Those seeking the door of Yahuwah and the Hebrew roots movements, they indeed return to the dead, divorced shell of a whorehouse. That's the door you're going through. The doorway to a whorehouse. You're not receiving Yahusha. You're into the old system of Yahuwah, and it's a whorehouse. If you don't believe me, do some more research. He divorced that whorehouse. But those who, only having their eyes opened, those who see Yahusha for who he truly is, they're invited to enter the open door, and he will indeed enter and sup, communicate and prep us for his soon return. There is only one door for deliverance, Yahusha Elohim. That's been an hour, brothers and sisters. I'm sorry it's a bit long, that spiel at the end, but that's what we need to do. Don't be looking to the old shell. Don't be looking to the Christian shell of the assemblies and churches. Don't be looking to the Jewish, Hebrew-rooted movements, Messianic Naturums, all those things. They're all into the old shadows as well. It's all an old dead carcass that you're worshipping and looking for the commands of Yahuwah. Yahushua came along and said he took all of it. He transitioned himself first. He took all of the old stuff and he whittled it into something new, and he said, look, love. It's all love. Love me and love everybody else. Love. And that's what we're being trained to do. Love. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And until you overcome and put on that crown of life, you won't be allowed into the wilderness. So run, brothers and sisters. Run your race to win your crown. Go through the door, which is Yahusha Elohim, your only source of deliverance. Love you, brothers and sisters. Bye-bye.